Lovely shout out for Ireland in the Financial Times.
It is
in recent days
for our national pastime.
Our national pastime, cocaine use, and how it's it's everywhere, which we know. But I thought it was interesting in this piece published by Jude Webber that we were at one point deemed to be the fourth biggest users of cocaine in the world.
Yeah.
So I think Australia, the Netherlands and Spain came before us, and then we were there. But actually the data for that comes from 2019.
Yes.
And if you look at this piece, it's pointed out that we have seen a 10-fold increase in seizures so far this year since 2019, which would suggest that, and 2019 now is what, 6 years ago, right?
Well done.
So thank you. That, we must be using even more since then. So I wonder, have we crept up the world cocaine taking ladder?
Now, and of course the figures for these are hard to come by, obviously. But I'll just give you an example of some of the articles. Now, anybody can do this if they go on to Google News and put in cocaine consumption Ireland.
Yeah.
And then look over just the last month, right?
Okay.
So I'm just going to read out some headlines. Ireland's cocaine habits comes to weddings, funerals, any occasion. That's the Financial Times. Cocaine catching up on alcohol in Kildare's health system. Middle-aged, middle-class coke use. Even if he stopped there, I wouldn't know if we'd ever get him back. That's in the Irish Times. The Irish Farmers Journal. Champagne to cocaine. Deb celebrations turn dark. It is the her.ie, rising number of women seeking cocaine addiction treatment in Ireland. The Spectator in the UK, how Ireland has become a haven for Hezbollah's cocaine. The Irish Medical Times, alcohol treatment at highest levels with cocaine. So it has become one of these things that's in a range of international and national newspapers.
You dig into to the story, and the likes of the Financial Times are saying that the Rutland Centre, which is one of Ireland's main addiction facilities, is reporting a 35% rise in cocaine use in 2024, one of the sharpest single-year increases it has recorded for any drug. That would be in relation to people going for treatment, which is a tiny percentage, in fairness, of cocaine users that end up going for treatment.
Yes, and I mean, the most recent figures, I think, put out by the Health Research Board of Ireland says cocaine-related harm surges as 7% of adults report drug use. So it's not just...
It's the drug of the nation,
Well, it's not just people like you banging on about it.
Yeah.
It is coming from everywhere. From the Farmers Journal to online publications to international newspapers.
We're making headlines.
We're making
for
headlines.
all the wrong reasons.
Yes.
The importance, I suppose, is when you this stuff starts to get reported, the likes of the Financial Times and the Spectator and that, like, they're serious publications.
They are.
That are probably, watched and monitored by people in serious business and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it is the kind of thing that could, disrupt the financial progress of the country.
Possibly. I mean, but I suppose it could, but for whatever reason, we're experiencing this phenomenal cocaine boom. Now, some of that has to be driven by the fact that the supply is big.
And the seizures that we're seeing aren't all for this market.
They aren't.
I mean, the likes of the MV Matthew, obviously, and other big tonnage seizures will increase our figures. A lot of the time, Ireland is used as a landing base into Europe. Once you've landed the drugs in Ireland, you're in Europe essentially, so you have a better chance now of moving them onwards. And they're big mother loads that are coming, that we're patrolling the coastline with very little resources in our navy. But sometimes they will get lucky through intelligence-led operations or otherwise. And that will sort of, I suppose, up the figures in the amount that is seized. But bar those big mother loads, it's the constant seizures really that we can kind of look upon to monitor the cocaine use within the country. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously was it the very first cocaine trafficking seizure in Ireland was a guy called Eamon Kelly, who would ultimately be shot dead by the real IRA.
That was a human mule that was used that time from Miami.
And do you remember what year it was? Was it the late 90s? Something like that.
You should have asked me to look that up.
Okay, but either way, so
it was actually just the beginning of the 90s as far as I can remember. And he was an entrepreneur. He went out to Miami. He made contact with an Irish guy who was based out there and who seemed to have been working almost as a double agent.
Yeah.
He was working for US intelligence services to try and infiltrate the Escobar network. It's a really interesting story that maybe we should come back to and retell sometime on the podcast. But Kelly sort of, at the time, cocaine was really being used by the proper middle class socialites, and that was it. It certainly wasn't a drug that was being bought on the streets or that was in supply across Ireland. There were certain suppliers of it. He saw its potential and he wanted to start a route to bring it in. So he convinced an immigrant actually in Miami, a Cuban lady, to strap it to her body. She flew into Ireland and there was an arrangement made that he would go and take it from her at a hotel, but he was actually under surveillance at the time and he was brought before the courts, and he was really the first convicted cocaine cowboy in Ireland.
And that seizure would have been 500,000 or something like that, was it at the time?
Yeah, I mean, again, I must go back because there's really interesting things that happen around that time. And what you then see is the big English suppliers, wholesalers, seeing Ireland as a good place to land their consignments, you know, the coastline, and particularly around Cork and down around the southwest coast. They see opportunities where there isn't probably, you know, as much monitoring as there would be in some of the English ports at that stage. They are mostly caught because they're unlucky.
Yeah. And if you go back to Eamon Kelly, at that stage, that was probably the biggest seizure of the year of cocaine, without a doubt, in Ireland, I would have thought.
Well, certainly the political interest at that time, and you're seeing politicians constantly getting up in the dole, worried about our coastline, but about cannabis seizures. And the cocaine starts to sort of trickle in without any big red flags being raised. We haven't a clue what's going to happen going forward because, of course, what did happen was you had the ecstasy boom of the 90s when all these people who would never have stuck a needle in their arm to take drugs, heroin or the likes, start taking drugs recreationally. They start going out clubbing, having you know, their night out on the love drug, and it sort of opens their minds and their, you know, their nights out to, let's take some drugs here as well as drink.
Yeah, so by the late 90s, cocaine is commonly sold in Ireland. By the early 90s, it's probably costing 80 punts a gram, would it? And by the late 90s, it's starting to come down in price amazingly, because
the real boom happened between 2000 and 2007, and that was the first real boom, right? And it coincided with the economy, the rise in employment, the amount of money being made through construction. And you see that by about 2007, 2006, there is figures being put on the cocaine market by law enforcement that we couldn't have dreamed of, you know?
So as well, like in that time, cocaine, I think it comes down to about 60 euros a gram.
Yeah.
The purity is going up. So if you look back on the 90s, you could buy a house probably in Ireland in Dublin for, say...
Can't even remember.
Say 80 or 90,000.
Could you?
Possibly, right? And
buy what, a garage for that now, which is shed.
Exactly. So the house prices, look, we're not experts in house prices, but say they've gone up 5 times since the mid 90s. The cost of cocaine has come down in the same time,
and the purity gone up.
The purity has gone up, and that's, you know, that shows you, that tells you something. Because, and the reason the price stays stable or comes down a bit and the purity goes up is because the laws of supply and demand. The supply becomes massive.
For political reasons largely.
Yeah.
To do with Colombia and the coca crops.
Yes.
And incentives made by the government there to try and get farmers to produce more legitimate produce, promises for education for their children, promises of road infrastructure, etc. And those they don't happen. And you also have, FARC, the terrorist group that are, funding itself through cocaine and
one way or another, either extorting from cocaine dealers or becoming directly involved.
That's just Colombia. Of course, cocaine is grown across the Andes.
Yeah.
So, Venezuela, Bolivia.
Yes.
And
also
Ecuador and...
Yeah, and and what happens is
Venezuela.
The war on drugs escalates in America. It doesn't succeed, but it certainly escalates. And in that time, the South American cartels realize it becomes more difficult to get drugs into the US. They're still going to do it no matter what. But that Europe becomes this untapped territory where also the economies are effectively booming since European unification. I mean, money pumps into the European economies over that time. Consumer spending goes up. I mean, you can argue about the economics, but people have more disposable income. And certainly the law enforcement, as we know, you get caught in America with cocaine, you do 20 years, the risks are far less in Europe, particularly at that stage where people are getting caught in places like Holland at that stage, and what would get you, a life sentence in the US might get you 3 or 4 years in a Dutch jail.
And then from a social point of view, as it becomes more available and you don't have to, be an elite.
No, you don't have to be elite one way or the other, as in an elite involved in the criminal world or an elite involved in the rich society.
Exactly. So it becomes more available. They start to push it out to, other parts of, you don't have to come to Dublin for it.
No.
It's available everywhere, as we know now, in every corner of rural Ireland. But the availability of it then is also affecting the demand, because if it's there in front of you and you don't have to move to go and buy, to purchase your consumer product, that's going to increase it. I mean, I always find it very interesting when probably really we're getting a lot of the stories from the treatment centres, where again, really probably a tiny percentage of cocaine users end up.
Yeah.
Like with alcohol, you'd probably have quite a lot of functioning cocaine users who go about their business and are able to
get up for work on Monday.
You don't know what's actually going on in their real lives, but they're still functioning. When people end up in rehab, something has usually happened, be it they have come into trouble with law enforcement, or there's just been a catastrophic
personal
domestic
crisis,
situation that's happened. But nonetheless, the stories you get from those, centres and rehab are really interesting, because they're talking about the users that are presenting for treatment. And a lot of them are certainly a growing amount of them, are people in their 60s, sometimes in their 70s. And they may have been, from parts of the country that you would never expect was going to, fester a massive cocaine problem. And they are kind of late users of the drug. But again, it's available in the local pub.
It's available in the local pub. Also,
it's available door to door. You can go on your phone and order it.
Well, that's another thing. So you go into the last decade, and how everybody gets all sorts of consumer products changes. But if you think back to the ecstasy years that you referred to, like, people had to go into, buy them on the street.
Yeah.
Because a dealer had to meet with the client,
Or in the clubs they were selling them.
Yeah, but also on the street, like street.
Yeah.
People had to do those deals on the street.
Yes.
Now you have the rise of people selling on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
The internet, door-to-door deliveries become so common. In recent years, paying by Revolut has become more common. All of these things facilitate the use of it. And, if you go back when we were in secondary school many, many years ago, let's put it that way.
Not really.
Well, just
not that long ago, was
you're
it?
Significantly older than me, being in that other decade that I'm.
You haven't long.
Not long. But, I mean, the idea that, like, cocaine use amongst secondary school students would have been absolutely unheard of, right? That's just the way it is. Now, people smoked hash, people drank, and then ultimately people started doing E's maybe. But cocaine use would have been unheard of.
It would have.
The fact is, that is just not true. And that it's not that it's people in these really rough schools, there'd be some kids in secondary school doing coke. That's not the case.
No.
Or just the real posh. It is kids are going to come across cocaine in their school years.
It knows no social boundaries.
No social boundaries, no age, no social boundaries.
And, when kids start,
coming across these things,
experiencing things, whatever they're doing, I find nowadays the drinking, which we see is going down in this country, and possibly, I don't know this from my own circles, but a third of the country don't drink at all.
Yeah. So
a lot. But anyway, I suppose you're dealing with younger and all the rest of it. You're talking about the entire population. But nowadays, when young people are out drinking, particularly girls, they're drinking really bloody expensive cocktails.
Well, it's not. And
one of them is more expensive than a little bag.
Well, you see, this is it. And it's not just girls drinking cocktails, but if you, like, we've done many stories, and so have all the other newspapers about where a pint in Temple Bar, isn't it? One was for sale for €11 for a pint, right?
Yeah, I don't drink pints, so I'm not aware what a pint should be.
Well, if you go back to the 90s, you would have got a pint for two quid.
Yeah, well, that's a long way off.
But you would have got a gram of cocaine for 60 quid.
I get you, yeah.
Now, so you would have got 30 pints for the price of a bag of cocaine.
Yeah.
Now you get 6.
Yeah.
So that is an issue.
It's not a controllable market, whereas the alcohol one is.
Yes, exactly. So, the relative cost of cocaine is becoming cheaper. It's more easily available. And pubs and all of that side of social life has become much more expensive to get taxis, all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's cocaine.
So what do we do about it? It is definitely not good that we are amongst the highest users in the world. It's not good. I do think that we as a nation have, history of addiction. I think we have this element that we do like to socialize. We have this ability to enjoy the fun.
Well, we do. Look, so this is a really complex question. The basic question is why do Irish people use cocaine so much
and drink so much? Now, we're going to get in trouble by offering opinions, but Northern Europeans tend to drink more than people in the Southern Hemisphere. Yeah.
Why that is that a genetic thing? Is that a cultural thing? Is that a historical thing? Is it the weather? Is it, who can fully say? Obviously, Irish expat communities in the US, even if they're there for 100 years, their drinking rates still tend to be higher than some other expat populations. So it's probably, in reality, a mixture of all of those things. Irish people as well. It's
very cultural, I suppose, the drinking.
It is.
And a lot of homes, I suppose, kids grow up that there's people in the house drinking or they're going to the pub or whatever. And I think they tend to follow those trends a little bit. They do.
And also, Irish people are sort of informal and maybe less rule-abiding. Why is that? There's loads of theories on that, from saying, for example, Protestant countries tend to be more rule-abiding than Catholics, or I don't know. I'm not going to define that, but it is part of our culture not to be rule-abiding.
Yeah.
If you go to some countries in Europe and you see people waiting for the green man when there's no cars on the road, compared with Ireland, where it's just part of our history, isn't it, to be a bit less, obliged to obey the law at all occasions, is it?
So cocaine itself as a drug gives people a high.
Yeah.
It makes them talk a lot more, feel a lot more confident.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's why it's used in a social setting. Some people who will use cocaine probably lack confidence, could be a bit lonely, and, use it to give them something to go into a social setting to make them feel they fit in.
Possibly, definitely. Yeah, no, look, absolutely. The problem for people...
I've always reckoned there's a little bit of that element, and a lot of very young men are taking it. It's for that confidence thing, they need it.
Well, and it's generally going to make somebody feel better while they're taking it.
For a while.
Yeah. So the real problem with cocaine is that as your body becomes accustomed to it, people take a line of cocaine, and for initially that will last them hours, and it'll wear off nicely. Do you know what I mean? But as people become more, develop a habit, really, they're gonna crash really quickly. So they might get an hour out of a line, and then it'll be followed by feelings of
exhaustion,
withdrawal, but also paranoia, anxiety, fear. And therefore you keep trying to chase those feelings away.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have that weekend thing. Those recreational, shall we say, users. And the weekend starts on a Thursday.
Yeah.
It doesn't end till Monday. And the longer the high is, the bigger the crash. Now, you could say exactly the same thing probably for people who drink.
But of course, as well, that's the other thing, that they are going together.
Yeah.
So people who are taking
It
Coke,
creates a different substance actually in the body.
Yeah, so people who are taking Coke are normally drinking 3 or 4 times the amount they would drink, because you're not going to collapse, basically.
Yeah.
So, and then
it keeps that all going, and then they're not, I suppose, just when people drink, they sort of do run out of steam, and they will eventually probably have to take themselves off to bed, go for sleep or something like that. The Coke is keeping them awake, keeping it all going.
Yes. And then there's obviously being other tablets sometimes being used because people can't go to sleep after it.
And the horrific feeling of the crash is absolutely...
So you keep chasing it away. So
that's, anyway, look, and anybody who finds themselves in those positions, that's just not a nice way to live. It's just, in general, it is not pleasant to have those feelings and those paranoias and all the rest of it. But looking on it, we've gone into the weeds a little bit there of cocaine use and what happens with it. But you're trying to understand the big picture.
Well, I think
you have to pull back from the idea of somebody in a club toilet taking a line, right?
Yeah.
Or a bump or whatever they call it. And you have to pull right back and bring your vision back to see it globally and to see what's going on politically, economically, socially, culturally.
Yeah.
And to try then and get an understanding of how embedded cocaine has got and why we in Ireland are just winning that race.
Yeah, so there's so many complex bits to it, and of course the people have a real, wariness with the war on drugs, right? But I do believe access and supply has definitely played a factor, and whether that could be addressed by other ways than the war on drugs, I don't know. But you do have to tackle the supply, and if the supply is really, really easy, then people will use more. Then you have to tackle the culture of why people find it acceptable to do cocaine. There's been loads of attempts to attack that culture. I don't think they've been particularly successful. One of them is to moralize about it, that
you buy this, you're causing this.
Yes, and I don't think that works, but that's not to say it's
I don't think it works.
I don't think it's incorrect to say that. That is true, that if you're buying cocaine somewhere along the line, somebody is probably being subjected to violence. That's as a result, but I don't think it stops people using it.
No, it doesn't.
And then the other thing is that if
a health-led approach probably is the most effective.
It probably is. But the problem with the health-led approach is, the health-led approach is not putting out a leaflet of, this is what cocaine can do to you. Like, you have to put money into it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who use cocaine will, at the very least, wake up on a Monday morning and think, I'm absolutely screwed up here now, I need some help. And if they do at that moment or that day go to seek help, are they going to get it? Probably not.
Probably not, yeah. And then they hit Wednesday, feel a bit better.
Yeah.
They're back on it.
Of course, and that can go on for years.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that is, like, you can, when countries have wanted to, and this is going to sound controversial, but it's nothing to do with the COVID vaccine, right? But when we wanted to tackle COVID, we put huge resources, the whole resources of the state into doing it, and stuff was done. Not to talk about the value of what was done or not, but so you have to put money and resources into something. It's not enough just to have, here's a helpline number
or a high moral ground.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we go. We're top of the cocaine table yet again. Thanks, Niall.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals,
drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.